You might have forgotten, but we're actually in the middle of a national emergency right now. It's easy to forget because we look around and we don't see any cause for the declaration that Donald Trump did not long ago, but he did it. And we now have to suffer the consequences, but perhaps he will as well. And joining us now to break down some of what those consequences might be, John Bonifaz, co-founder and president, Free Speech for People. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here. So we had the declaration of a national emergency. To your mind, is this a legitimate declaration?
No, it's a bogus declaration. The president knew that he was not going to get out of Congress the funding for his wall on the southern border. He heard that twice from Congress. He shut the government down in December and then reopened it in January when he didn't get the funding for the wall. And then after his short time frame to give Congress the opportunity to negotiate and discuss how to engage in funding his wall, they refused again explicitly to fund it. And he said throughout that he would use fake emergency powers, these emergency powers, he said he would use them to build this wall if he didn't get the funding. That is precisely not what the National Emergency Powers Act of 1976 is designed for. It's not designed as an end run around Congress and their sole authority to appropriate money. So this is a clear violation of the separation of powers principles, where Congress and only Congress has the power to appropriate funds. And effectively what Donald Trump is doing is seizing legislative powers by the executive, the very definition of tyranny, according to James Madison, and trying to fund his wall by taking monies from the military budget that was never designed for this to build it. And this is why we have announced at freespeechforpeople.org this 11th ground for impeachment proceedings. This abuse of emergency powers, violation of the separation of powers principle, gives ground for impeachment proceedings again.
So as you point out, that you've described not only this, but other grounds for his impeachment. You called this the 11th. I'm curious, does this break the top 10? How does this rank in comparison to other violations of the law and things like that that he has done? And also, why do you believe that impeachment is necessary at this point? Sort of the philosophical underpinning of the multiple different arguments that you and your group have been making.
Right. So there's no question this is one of the most serious impeachable offenses this president has committed. Serious because the use of emergency powers threatens our republic directly. If the president's going to declare emergency for building his wall, what else will he declare an emergency for? For sanctioning Americans, for shutting down the internet, for using the military to shut down protests in the United States. This is a very dangerous president to have access to these emergency powers when he is so lawless and so willing to defy the very essence of our Constitution. So it's a very serious impeachable offense and demands that Congress act. As far as why Congress must act, the impeachment power in the Constitution is there for Congress representing the people to protect the republic. The remedy is removal from office. This is separate and apart from any criminal investigation that Robert Mueller or the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York or anyone else is conducting of Donald Trump. The punishment, the remedy there rather, is punishment in the criminal justice system. And that is distinct from the remedy here. We need to protect our republic, protect our Constitution, and to simply say we're going to wait until 2020 to so-called impeach him at the ballot is mixing apples and oranges. We need to deal with the constitutional crisis facing America today, with the emergency that's in the Oval Office today, and start impeachment proceedings now.
And I know that there are members of Congress that do support impeaching the president for a number of different reasons, including ones that you've listed. We've previously talked about the op-ed that you co-wrote with Representative Rashida Tlaib. I am curious, though. It seems like while there was a lot of talk about the possibility during the campaign and immediately after, even at the beginning of this year, I don't see as an outsider much actual progress towards that. And so I'm curious, as more of an insider in terms of this effort, do you believe that there is sort of substantive progress inside of Congress pushing for impeachment?
I think there's some, but I think you're right that there's not enough. And frankly, what it's going to take is further pressure from the outside, from we the people. Today, we announced that state legislators in Massachusetts and in Pennsylvania have introduced impeachment resolutions modeled off of resolutions we've drafted, which would call on Congress and their congressional delegations to start impeachment proceedings. We need to see more of this activity at the state and local level. We need to be calling on our members of Congress to act, and the time is now. I know many in Congress are trying to effectively hide behind the issuance of the Mueller report whenever and if we ever see that. But that is really kicking the can down the road on this crisis that we face today. We do not need the Mueller report to start impeachment proceedings. The Mueller report may amplify the need for impeachment proceedings, but we already had more than sufficient evidence to demonstrate that this president needs to be held accountable via the impeachment process. And members of Congress need to follow their oaths, defend our Constitution, and start those impeachment proceedings now.
And I think that the distinction you draw between the what might come from the Mueller report and what we already know is an important distinction that is often lost, because I feel like, as you point out, that members of Congress are appearing to hide behind the eventual release of it. I think much of the media is doing the same thing. So thank you for drawing that distinction. John Bonifaz, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.